everyone, and welcome to Technology Planning for Heritage Organizations, Lessons Learned and Resources from the OHS Reach project. This is the fourth in our OHS Reach project webinar series. My name is Heather Anderson, and I'm the Executive Assistant here at the Ontario Historical Society. A very quick word about the OHS. The Ontario Historical Society is a not-for-profit corporation, a publisher and charity. It's a non-government group founded in 1888, bringing together people of all ages, all walks of life, and all cultural backgrounds interested in preserving some aspect of Ontario's history. Our webinar today will begin very shortly. I am going to do a brief bit of technical support, then introduce our speaker, and then we'll head right into the presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to very briefly go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's events. We've taken a screenshot of your attendee interface for the webinar software. You should see something that looks like this on your own computer desktop in the upper right-hand corner. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit questions to today's presenter or to myself by typing your questions into the questions pane on the control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and I'll be keeping an eye on these as we go along and jumping in as appropriate, and we'll address the majority of them during our Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. If you run into any trouble during the webinar and need my help, you can also use the raised hand button. It's a small yellow hand also in your menu. Just click it and your hand will be raised and I'll ask what I can do to help. If you're finding that the slides are moving very slowly or that your audio keeps cutting out, try closing a few other programs. The more bandwidth you're using, the harder the webinar program has to work. If you lose your connection entirely, try closing the webinar window and then re-entering the room using the link you received in your email. Closing and restarting will often solve the problem. This webinar is being recorded, and that recording will be made available to OHS members on our website after the series is over, and later through the public in our YouTube channel. We will make today's slides available this week, so don't worry about writing everything down. I'd now like to introduce our speaker, Sarah McCabe. Sarah is the OHS Reach Project Manager here at the Ontario Historical Society. A librarian and researcher, Sarah has spent the past year exploring the potential of the Ontario Historical Society as a provider of programs, publications, and services. Sarah is very excited to share all of the lessons she has learned in technology planning within the OHS Reach project. So I'm now going to switch control over to Sarah. So just one moment, please.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Fantastic. Welcome. We are thrilled to have so many of you with us today. This webinar has been prepared for OH members and affiliates, but also for Ontario's heritage community in general, including historical societies, municipal and government agencies, libraries, archives, museums, and interested individuals, etc. Welcome to you all. We'd just like to take a very quick poll just to see where you're coming to us from today. Let's see if this pulls up. It should. Where are you joining us from today? We'd really like to know. Just give it a few moments and then we'll take a peek. Fantastic. Most of you are from Ontario. We've got 2% of you from international, amazing, and 11% from outside Ontario. I recall we had registrants from British Columbia and Newfoundland and Labrador, and Nova Scotia. So welcome and a shout out to you all. We thank you for joining us. So the purpose of this webinar is twofold. We are looking to share OHS technologies, to share the OHS's technology planning process and experience. And secondly, to share the top resources that we encountered during our project. You'll be aware that there's a lot of information out there. And we sifted for a year, and I'm delighted to share with you the things we found most helpful. I've concentrated on the freely available resources that you can access today if you want. So the goal is to help you make informed decisions about IT infrastructure upgrades and technology planning. So a disclaimer to start, I don't know everything. We do not know everything, but we're very pleased to share our experience. And just to let you know, it is okay if you also do not know everything. Technology planning is a large topic. We are really grateful for your replies to our sign-up question about, is your organization planning for technology upgrades? Do you have any particular questions or topics you'd like us to address in the webinar? Your answers were very helpful and interesting and show that we have a lot of common challenges among us. We will try to address many of your questions in today's presentation, but of course there are many topics that are out of scope. For instance, collection management software for museums, I'm afraid. But we will remember these topics for future educational opportunities. I'm not talking about social media today, but we've added some resources to the handout which you'll receive after the presentation. So many of you are considering a new website or to acquire or replace hardware, and that's terrific because we were too. And I confess at the beginning, it felt a little bit like Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz going into the dark, scary, haunted forest with the signs that said, "I'd turn back if I were you." But along the way of our journey, we made friends. We met the Tin Man and the Scarecrow, and we're well on our way to the Emerald City and ultimately safely home to Kansas. I'm going to go a mile wide and an inch deep today with information, so I'm hoping there'll be something for everyone. And a document with the resources and links for more detailed information will be emailed to you after the webinar, along with a short feedback survey. So when you leave, what do I hope you will take away? Firstly, an understanding of the process that the OHS used, some or all of which you may be able to apply to your organization. And then selected resources that we found useful to support you in your projects, but starting ahead of where we were a year ago. And thirdly, inspiration, I hope. We would like to inspire our members and affiliate groups in particular to address similar organizational change projects using the Ontario Historical Society as a case study or a model. And we hope when you leave, you will feel more empowered to tackle your own tech planning projects than you did when you registered. So what is the OHS Reach project? You're looking at the media release from June of 2015 announcing the launch of the OHS Reach project, which has been the initial one-year development stage of a 3-year initiative to transform how the Ontario Historical Society interacts with members and subscribers and other stakeholders, and to furnish the expansion of online services and access. We were awarded a 2015 Ontario Trillium Foundation grant in support of OHS Reach, and we thank the Ontario Trillium Foundation. Amongst other work, the whole project is, included planning for infrastructure upgrades. The point is to build capacity within the society and our stakeholder groups to inspire our members and affiliated societies to address similar organizational change projects. The grant was written because it seemed to be a timely and strategic opportunity to modernize the operations for the OHS, which has been around since 1888. And also, we've taken note of the increasingly digital heritage community featuring all of our stakeholders, and that means all of you listening. Before we jump into the meat of the presentation, what do I mean by technology? I mean IT, information technology. And in this context, that is computer systems, including hardware and software and the internet. You'll see there are other webinars out there on IT management for small nonprofit organizations, but what the OHS can contribute is what we've learned over our year's project planning for improvement to our online platform. In fact, we've learned there is a whole online course for a fee called On-Demand Technical Tech Planning, which is offered by Idealware. We haven't taken this course, but it might be worth it to your organization. What a really good idea is, for free, is to have a look at their really neat 1-minute course trailer video after the webinar and check out the PDF of the topics that they cover, because it will give you a bird's eye view of the challenges that you may encounter. Some signposts through the woods, the haunted woods, back to the Emerald City, if you will. So, on to our process. We had 6 steps. We will go through these together, and along the way, I will draw attention to what we learned. So, as you see, our steps started with initial planning and information gathering. Then we went to identifying the needs of our stakeholders, which meant for us holding a membership survey and stakeholder meetings. Then we had a look internally. We did a strategic plan update and a human resources plan update. Then, somewhere around January, I'd say, we recruited our tech consultants. Then we performed an IT assessment on our hardware and software. And finally, I guess the Emerald City for us in this case was developing an IT build plan and timeline. So to begin, number 1, we sought guidance for our project. We read, and we went to conferences. We talked to people. We did a lot of research, and we gathered and analyzed information. One particular workshop was pivotal for us. It was called Take Back Your Tech, and it was offered by TechRaiser, an initiative of Framework, a Canadian registered charity which helps nonprofits with technology. This was, no question, the best $40 we spent all year and opened our eyes to a lot of things. Incidentally, Framework does website audits. They've analyzed over 500 Canadian nonprofit websites for their website audit initiative, so you might find this interesting. And a link will be in the handouts. So, what we learned is there are free resources out there for technology for nonprofits. TechSoup.ca or .com is your friend, and I will refer to them quite a bit, the resources in our webinar. They may actually be your best friend for information. What is TechSoup? They are a nonprofit team of people dedicated to empowering charities, nonprofits, and libraries with the effective use of technology. And if there's one thing that you take away from this webinar that I swear will make having spent this hour together worthwhile, it's to become aware of TechSoup. They have a technology donations program, and they have learning resources. And also TechSoup.com is the American version and has wonderful learning resources as well. Have a look at their TechSoup video. There is so much free education. Titles include Working with Tech Consultants and How to Select the Right Computer Hardware for Your Organization. I want to take a little poll here and ask you this. Prior to this webinar, had you ever heard of TechSoup? This was something I learned at the Take Back Your Tech workshop, and it was a key to so much learning. So I'm seeing that about 2/3 of you had not, and 1/3 of you had. This is interesting. Now that you know about TechSoup, I'll tell you one of the first things we learned. The value of reaching out, of learning from each other. Not only is TechSoup your friend, but your friends are your friends. Keep making friends. We reached out for advice on certain parts of our plan. For instance, we are planning a corporate archives online repository. And so we spoke with librarian colleagues at the Law Society of Upper Canada. For the survey that we took, we received very kind advice from the Archives Association of Ontario. And we spoke at length with the Ontario Genealogical Society, and we thank them for their advice as well. We talked with the National Trust, the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, etc., etc. And we have challenges in common. Our experience was that people were very happy to help, and we are grateful. We learned about project management. What an interesting and incredibly practical topic. I was lucky to attend an outstanding presentation at a library conference by Emily Clasper. She's generously made her material available online, and the links will be in your resources handout. My favorite advice is avoid scope creep. To keep your project's specific goals sharply in focus, do no more or no less than what's defined in the scope of your project. Something to keep in mind. So on to planning. In our initial research, what did we learn? We learned that planning is your foundation, and time spent planning is time well spent. Don't skimp on your planning time. And of course, as you may imagine, it may take a little longer than you think, so keep that in mind. But here's something else we learned that's a little bit philosophical. You don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step. This is Martin Luther King Jr. and has been my screensaver for over a year. It's a bit antithetical. On one hand, I'm advising planning. On the other hand, I'm saying, with knowledge, things become clearer as you go along, which was our experience. So take heart. On to step 2 in our process, identify needs. We wanted to find out what OHS members' needs were for digital programs and services. So we asked them. We asked you. Preparing, sending out, and analyzing our survey turned out to be a major but very fruitful undertaking. One thing we learned, there is great value in the request for open comments. So beyond structured questions, asking what else is on your mind, what else should we know, turned out to be a great way to get to know what was of interest to our members. For our survey, we chose the tool SurveyMonkey. There are others, but this service is very popular and worked great for us. SurveyMonkey provides some great free how-to information on best practices and guidelines that we followed. That will be in your handout as well. So what did we learn? We learned how to run a medium-sized survey. And there's an art to asking the right question to learn what you want to know. How you ask the question matters. Our second needs assessment method was stakeholder meetings. Part of the mandate of the OHS Reach project was to determine members and affiliates' needs with regard to OHS programs and services. So I had the privilege of meeting and speaking with members around the province. Our goal, our Emerald City there in step 6, has been to create a build plan for a new online platform. And the needs that members expressed for the programs and services have been crucial in designing it. You're looking at the lovely people in the New Sudbury Historical Society when I was up north last fall. What we learned was the value of doing both the online or paper survey, which we fed into the online survey, and the in-person and phone conversations. Meeting our members where they live and work provided context for ways the OHS could support them. Incidentally, one of the big themes we found was an interest in digitization. I know that many of you are interested in this too, according to your registration comments. So, as a direct result of our stakeholder consultations, we held a 3-part webinar on project management for digitization programs presented by Our Digital World. This webinar and the associated resources are presently available online to members of the OHS only, but they will become publicly accessible in October of 2016. So keep an eye open for that. Step 3 in our process was internal review. We looked out and then we looked in and examined our processes. To support our digital strategy, the OHS did a strategic plan update for the next 3 years. And we did a human resources plan update with options depending on what funding would be available. We considered what human resources might be needed to support these plans that we were devising for our new platform. We held a webinar, The Secrets to Strategic Success, Strategic Planning for Small Organizations, presented by Kim Pittaway. This is also presently available to OHS members online and will be publicly viewable in a few months in December 2016. Then in our process, we recruited our tech consultants. Once we'd done our research and we learned what our members' programs and services needs are, and we examined our own processes, we sought tech consultants to design our build plan. This involved finding an IT firm or firms, and as you can imagine, there was much research and much interviewing. What did we learn? The very best referrals came from personal recommendations, from word of mouth, and it takes time to get to know each other, kind of like dating, to find the best fit. Furthermore, we learned that the nature of the IT industry is fragmented. It's interesting to figure out who does what and who to talk to assist you with what. All the different vocabulary and what things cost, what's reasonable. It's challenging to figure out. So some advice for that is from our friends at TechSoup. There's an article, How to Choose and Work with Technology Consultants, and other resources are included in your handout. I'm glad to say that our recruiting was successful and we had an excellent experience with our consultants. There are many articles available now to give you the confidence to find and work with tech consultants yourself. Step 5 in our process was performing an IT assessment. So further to looking at our processes internally, we had this assessment performed. What exactly does this mean? When I first read IT assessment, it was again very much like Dorothy in the forest. We had to define it and figure out that it is a thing. People do this. It's been done before. We're not reinventing the wheel. We learned that an IT assessment is a review of your technology infrastructure. And this includes how you manage your data and your hardware and your software, your online tools and your offsite tools, your servers, your remotely hosted content. So our IT assessment found that there was much room for improvement to assist our staff efficiency and productivity and to support our proposed new digital platform. To learn more, have a look at this recent webinar from TechSoup on how to assess your IT needs and implement technology at your nonprofit. A second terrific tool that we used was created by Tierney Smith and featured in the TechSoup article, Are Your Technology Priorities in Order? Take the Tech Self-Assessment. We were fortunate to be able to reallocate unspent funds from our grant to implement the recommendations of the IT assessment. So as we speak, the boxes are arriving at the OHS with routers and switches and wireless access points, about which we're very excited. Part of our reallocation involves training so that the OHS may become self-supporting of our own network with antivirus monitoring, etc. So do remember that with new equipment must come training in how to use it. We're going to keep learning and sharing what we've learned. Finally, step 6 in our process, we developed an IT build plan and timeline. The OHS has a website. We want to make it better. We want to make it more robust with programs and features to support our members well, such as an online forum where members can share best practices. We had to figure out what precedents were there for such a thing. Discussion lists, different methods of sharing things online, and there are such a thing as an online forum. Then also an online archive so that our affiliates can access their legal incorporation documents, which we hold easily. And an ebook store. Part of our project was we digitized the publications that the OHS has made, all the richness from the past 100 and something years. So we're looking forward to making that available on our platform as well. We had ideas, we had a lot of ideas, and we needed to translate them into technology. So with the help of our tech consultants recruited in step 4, we were able to do just that. But which website to choose, which website technology? As we learned, there's many options. This is something that I know that most of you are very interested in. What options are there for website design? And how do you find the right fit? What was the right fit for the OHS? Well, one thing is to look at what our peers are doing. Again, reach out, don't reinvent the wheel, do your research. And we found there's a report that many of you will find interesting from the Canadian Internet Registration Authority, CIRA. This looked at digital capacity in Canada's not-for-profit sector. In 2014, CIRA provided a grant to Framework, who we heard about back in step 1, to conduct audits of the websites of more than 400 Canadian not-for-profit organizations. The report looks at who's using what content management systems. Okay, again, what's a content management system? When we started, I did not know this. I am slightly embarrassed to admit it, but the thing is, I took a web development class 5 years ago. Many of you have studied, website design technology in the past. The term didn't come up, so don't be embarrassed. Don't feel bad if you've never heard of a content management system. We are all learning together. So what is it? Generally speaking, a CMS, content management system, is a software package that lets you build a website that can be quickly and easily updated by your non-technical staff members. So in the CIRA report, what are other nonprofits doing? Well, they reported that 2/3 of the organizations that they studied were using a content management system to keep their websites up to date. So it's a matter of choosing a content management system, if you choose to use one. There's a publication that was very helpful to us from Idealware called The Consumer's Guide to Content Management Systems for Nonprofits. It's a very large document. It's about 168 pages. And it's, as of a day or two ago, it's been taken offline, I'm afraid, to be updated. So please keep an eye open for this. You may find it very useful. In the meantime, and I should say while we're looking at that, it covers the 14 most popular content management systems at the time, including Drupal and Joomla and Squarespace, Weebly, Wix. You've probably seen commercials for some of these, Weebly and Wix, for instance. We'll talk about them in a moment. Here's a very helpful source in the meantime for how to set up a website. This one is very helpful. It's again from TechSoup, how to choose a content management system, accept donations, and set up email on your domain. This will be in the handout. So what are the most popular content management systems? There's a fantastic infographic that you can click the link in the handout and have a good close look at, called The Ultimate CMS Showdown between Joomla and Drupal and WordPress. This infographic shows the strengths and weaknesses of each. The CIRA report here shows that WordPress is by far the most popular CMS among Canadian nonprofits, or not-for-profits rather. The OHS is presently using Joomla. Joomla has worked, but we could do better, and we are going to WordPress. We're very excited to be moving forward in that direction. But if you don't want to use the big three, WordPress, Drupal, or Joomla, there are alternatives. And here is a very recently updated chart comparing some of them: Wix, Squarespace, and Weebly. Some of OHS's members are using these platforms too, and they may be the right choice for you. So do look forward to having a look at that when you have your handout. For everyone considering starting or updating a website, I think you'll benefit from this particular resource. It's a site called Web Development and Design 101. It's simple and speaks clearly for beginners, a very helpful resource. Something that kept coming up as we were doing our research was the cloud. What is the cloud? So back at the workshop in October, I was very lucky to have Ms. Tierney Smith as my mentor for the day. And one of her words of advice was, the cloud is your friend. Do not be afraid of the cloud. But what is it? It's actually someone else's server. It's where you can host or store your data offsite. There are many good things about this. Do not be afraid of the cloud. We are including an article, A Nonprofit's Guide to Cloud Storage for Security and Productivity, in your handout. So what else did we learn? I had a revelation when I was putting together this presentation, which was, obviously, the only constant in technology is change. But you know what? Most of these resources did not even exist when OHS wrote the OHS Reach project grant application in 2014. So that bodes well. It means that support is growing and there will be more developed as you go into the future. Yeah. So now, last but not least, I wanted to mention that when you're developing your new website, accessibility is very important and something to keep in mind. There are many types of reader impairments and disabilities to keep in mind. For instance, vision, low vision, color blindness, for instance, for which you'd use large, simple fonts and think about your white space. There's learning and cognitive issues, not forgetting English as a second language, which would be useful to have shorter paragraph lengths and simple text as recommendations. Mobility and dexterity, using a mouse. So using things like bookmarks and hyperlinks and tables of contents so that people can navigate efficiently around your site and reduce scrolling. You're looking at the homepage of Accessibility Ontario, which has many resources. We took webinars from Accessibility Ontario, including Make Websites Talk, where we learned about assistive software called Browse Aloud. And we took Introduction to Document Accessibility. So hopefully the OHS can continue to develop not just our platform, but other documents that we produce with accessibility in mind. Why is accessibility so important? Well, we ran across a great report from Wilfrid Laurier University. They have a handbook called Enabling Access Through Web Renewal. According to their report, in Ontario, the Accessibility Directorate of Ontario has said there are 1.65 million people with disabilities in Ontario, which is 1 in 7 people. And of course, we have an aging population. This handbook from Wilfrid Laurier has great advice for updating organizational websites to meet accessibility standards, including a best practices checklist. So, in summary, today we have had a learning objective to share our technology planning process, and we've gone through the 6 steps from initial planning and information gathering, all the way through identifying needs, internal review, external, recruiting our tech consultants, and performing our IT assessment. And finally, we have emerged with a build plan and timeline that we are looking forward to implementing. And secondly, our goal has been to share with you top resources we encountered during our project. And I know, fast tour through them. This webinar will be available online, but also the resources in your handout will be useful to actually take a good look at some of these. In conclusion, you've heard about some of the best resources we encountered in our journey, and we hope that this information will be useful to you. And we wish you every success in your own tech planning process. Please tell us about your projects. We would love to hear about them. Our next step is preparing for implementation, so please keep an eye on this space. And that's what I have to say. Thank you very, very much, everyone. Back to Heather.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was fantastic. We're going to get started on our Q&A session now. If you want to send in those questions in the question panel, we've got time for anything really that you've got to ask. We've got a first question from Sandra Miller. Sandra asks, was there any exploration or research into online forums that would help organizations with branches or far-flung members to discuss their issues, to share news, etc.?
Unmuted.
That is an excellent question. And you know what? I want to do a little bit more specific research and see if I can get back to you personally about that offline. We are using a WordPress platform for our new development. There are modules in WordPress that will satisfy that particular function. And also we're going to have custom design to enhance them. So I don't have the top of my head to tell you where to look presently. It's going to be part of our build plan as we start working on it. But we want to find something where we can share the best practices with our members, because there's things like, for instance, cleaning gravestones. We have members who are in charge of historical and some active cemeteries. Things that they call us to ask that it would be wonderful if everybody in the gravestone cleaning, business had access to. We could put that up on a forum for best practices. Or lighthouses. We have wonderful groups who are saving lighthouses in Ontario. They have certain special interests in common. Hopefully they'll be able to discuss and plan and share resources themselves on our forum. Far-flung is right. Ontario, as I discovered in traveling around, is enormous and definitely has variations between the needs of our urban members and our more rural members. So we're very excited about our forum. Let me do a little looking into that, and I'll see if I can get back to you with more information. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Sarah. So our next question is technology and online presence is obviously a hugely important tool for historical societies, for them to connect to members and a number of things we've already discussed. But keeping up with technology and social media also takes up more and more of our volunteers' time and resources. Do you have a recommendation for a minimum amount of technology that you think a small historical society should use? What are the most important sites or tools that we should concentrate our limited time and resources on? Whether that's just a website, a Facebook page, whatever.
Another really good question. I would have to say that one of the most important things is letting people know what you're doing. So, are you having meetings coming up? Are you at festivals, or do you have sessions? If you had even, and thing two, not only what you're doing, but how to get in touch with you. So even if you had a domain name, which costs $10 a year, something like that, historicalsociety.ca, your historical society. where people could go, even if it had one page on it that said, our next meeting is September 22nd at 3 o'clock at this location. Or if you have questions, please contact our director at this email address. That would be amazing. Simply to say, A, you exist, B, when people want to find you, they can contact somebody, and C, so people can have one source to go to figure out what you're doing. Even beyond that one page, if you wanted to enhance that further, as some of you have marvelously with digitization of your historical resources, your photographs and your newsletters, links to other organizations in your localities. More pages on a website would be great, and blogs, if you have blogs about items of interest, articles of your community, that would be great too. But I'd suggest, if you can, even to update once a month, for half an hour, one page on a dedicated website would be fantastic. In addition to that, as far as social media goes, free is good. Free is good. Facebook is still very popular. If you have an account set up, you can also send out updates as to, hey, our next meeting is on September something. With photographs, you can have conversation going because there's a facility for comments between members. It's a new thing for a lot of people. I had to learn Facebook. At first, I was intimidated, didn't understand the concept, why, but I found that it was a great way for keeping communities connected. It's a community builder where you have people of similar interests together, just to be in one, that you are all in one group, or you all like a particular page. Facebook. Twitter is also a very interesting utility. The OHS makes great use of Twitter. It is much more dynamic than Facebook. Posts come and they go. You see them, they go down your feed, and you may not see them again. But if your membership is interested in Twitter, it's a great way to keep informing. And also you can forward other people's posts that are of interest to your members who may follow your Twitter feed. So Twitter is great too. We had a terrific webinar by Kim Pittaway on social media that is available on our website for anybody for free. And it comes with links in her handouts document. So I put that in our handouts as well as some advice. Societies are doing great things with social media and Facebook and Twitter, photographs on Flickr, for instance. But yes, best advice, top of my head, if you can get a domain, a homepage with one page with your contact information, updated every now and then as to what you're doing and the fact that you exist. Sorry for the long answer, but that seems like my best advice.
Fantastic, Sarah. So we've got a good follow-up to that question, which is from Jane McNamara, and she says, I wondered whether forums have been replaced by Facebook groups entirely. Do you know of anyone running a really active forum right now?
Excellent question, Jane. No, top of my head, I can't say that I do. We need to look. See, forum is kind of a. It's hard to figure out what exactly we're calling this utility. I cannot. I will say that Facebook has not replaced what it is that we're hoping to offer. Yeah, that's what I can say about that. Forums is something that we need to do more looking into so that I can speak authoritatively on that, I'm afraid. But thank you, though.
Okay, everyone. We do have a bit of time for any more questions if someone wants to send in a last one. But seeing none, I'll just move on to our wrap-up of the webinar today. So you will receive an email with a link to our post-webinar evaluation survey. we'd be very glad if you would please provide your valuable feedback. We use this feedback to create each new webinar and to respond to your needs as our membership, so we'd really appreciate that. A little bit more about our membership. We encourage you to become a member of the OHS if you're not already. The Society's programs and services offer great support and resources for historical groups and institutions, historians, students, and educators, and your support will help continue to promote the importance of history education in Ontario's classrooms, museums, and heritage spaces. I've just seen a last-minute question, so I'm going to interrupt myself to ask this, Sarah. Sherry Hurst asks, would you recommend a survey to people not in your society to possibly get them to join?
Would I recommend a survey to people not in your society to get them to join? Well, why not? For instance, the North York Historical Society is having a table at a local fair, and a lot of people that come by will not be members. It is a great thing to reach out to inform people what you're doing, and why not use a survey as a way to, with a clipboard and some questions, talk to them. Or I'm not sure how you administrate a survey to people who aren't members exactly. As far as sending emails, there's legislation in Canada, CASL, I think it's Canadian Anti-Spam legislation, that prohibits you from, unsolicited spamming sort of emails. So it's an interesting question. In theory, yes, a mechanism to reach out to people who don't know about you. Let me backtrack 1 second. One great thing about our survey that we found was that it not only said, what do you think of these things? It said, hey, OHS does these things. We have a lot of programs and services and groups, committees of our board doing things that our members didn't know about. We isolated a need for us to better publicize what we do, and that was a value in our survey. So finding out what people in your community who aren't members don't know about you is an opportunity to share what you do. So yes, I'm all in favor of it. Have to think about how to run it, but yes, that's a terrific idea.
Yes, and we just got a quick message from Sandra to say that they have a friends mailing list as well as a members list, and everyone who signs up agrees to the CASL ledge, which the OHS has a similar system as well. And Verona Leslie also says that you could put a link to a survey on your Facebook site. And then we have less than half the number of members than we do have likes on Facebook, so that's a really good recommendation if you've got a public forum like Facebook and you'd want to do a survey of non-members to put it up on that public forum. That's perfect. Thank you, Verona. So I will finish wrapping up our webinar here today. Just please remember to visit the OHS website for more information on becoming a member or to contact our membership coordinator, and you can find the information there on the screen. Lastly, I wanted to say a very big thank you to our speaker, Sarah McCabe. I think we can all agree she did a fantastic job. And thank you to everyone who attended today's session. We really appreciate all the feedback that we get for this OHS webinar series, and we really thank you for your interest in the work that we are doing. Thank you so much, and have a fantastic day.